Hi, it's Jack Hathaway. Welcome to this month's edition of Conversation Corner. I'm joined as usual by Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Jim Lehan. Hi, Jim.
Jack.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
So our monthly show has we've been a little
tardy.
We've been a little tardy, but now that fall's here, we'll get back into the swing of things. So we got a pretty good list of stuff to do. Appreciate you working with me on prepping for this.
It's always a pleasure. It's been one of the busiest summers I can remember.
Yeah,
I came out a lot going on in town.
When I met, it's funny. I talked to the town hall employees when I was hired, and was interviewed by some of the staff. Interviewed me as well, and people told me that the summers are great, and it's slow, and that disappeared about 10 years ago.
They lied.
Yeah, they did lie.
Yeah. They didn't want to lose you too quickly.
So we have a little agenda. So
but the bad news about that is that we are going to lose you.
Yep, well, that's true. I am. My wife Liz and I have decided to head up to York, Maine, and we're going to relocate. Our youngest daughter, Christina, has gone off to college, so we're empty nesters, and we've made the decision to move up to Maine. So,
we're probably going to go in a little soap opera commercial here, but you've been our town administrator for about 15 years and finance director before that.
Yep.
And the tenure of town administrators in the state of Massachusetts is nowhere near 15 years. So you're commended for that. I always knew you were going to leave eventually when the kids left. I just didn't think it was going to be now.
No,
but I think it's good to share with folks what that means and how we go forward. And Jack has a contract with us through the end of June. And he said that he does not intend to request a renewal of that contract. He's also in the process, he's not leaving for another job, I might say that. Mm-hmm. So therefore he is in search, and that search may culminate at any point in time. We don't know. So when Jack came on board, we had a town administrator here by the name of Bob Markle. Under the contract that Bob had, as well as Jack has, town administrators can give us 30 days notice of their departure. The process for going through the search for a new town administrator, if everything goes well, usually runs about 4 months. And that's if everything goes well. And we haven't seen a whole lot go well lately, so we'll see how that works. But it takes 4 months. And if Jack finds a job and gives us 30 days notice, anybody in their right mind would do that. And we understand that. So the board has asked Jack to consider targeting a date that we could use as a transition so that we could begin the search process earlier, and that we would provide some severance compensation, which I would add is very common among town administrator contracts to allow us, because this is what we call a termination of contract without cause. And so Jack has been gracious enough to consider that. We're working through that as we discuss. It's a hard conversation for me because I'm going to miss Jack greatly. He's been a great service to this community, and when you can find a town administrator that not only is effective and capable, but you find one that cares, you've got the trifecta, and we've had that with Jack. And it's the type of job, as is I think all of these jobs these days, where you can't please everybody, and to try is probably the worst thing you can possibly do. But I have not had the pleasure of working with anyone, either in my professional career or in my town exposure, with anyone that I have greater respect for than Jack. So he will be missed. We're toying with a December 1st date, which would allow us then to get into a search process earlier and hopefully have someone on board February timeframe with a little bit of luck. That's with a little bit of luck. If we did not, if Jack were not willing to do this and we ran into a 30-day notice, it would be very difficult for us because we would then couldn't begin the search until we knew that date, if you will. And that runs right into the Springtown meeting. And having a new town administrator, perhaps not even on board by May, would make it very, very difficult for the community. So I thank Jack for being willing to negotiate a finite date to allow us this process, and I wish that finite date weren't happening at all. I wish you were staying, but having seen York, I can understand why you want to go there. It's a beautiful, beautiful community. So that's the latest and greatest on the rumors that have been out there around Jack. I know that everyone is in mourning in town hall because not only are you great respected by the people you work for and with, but town hall is going to miss you greatly. So, but we wish you well, but not yet.
Thank you.
But not yet.
Thank you.
All right.
Not easy for me to talk about, so I'll move right along. Norfolk means a great deal to me and to Liz. So
We have town meeting coming up.
we do.
Yes, we do.
So November 27th is the Tuesday after town meeting. We have town meeting scheduled. The things I listed on there that are the kind of the big items. We have some capital items, kind of the typical things that the smaller capital items, if you will. Looking at some police vehicles, some 2 vehicles for town hall, one for the building department, one for the facilities department, some engineering funds that are needed for a variety of different projects and to help the planning board and the zoning board work through some of their ongoing challenges, particularly around 40Bs. So those are between capital and budget transfers, the big things that are financial items. We have a zoning change that really just applies to kind of called the Zone 2 protection. So that's around wells. The planning board has a zoning change that they want to put in place for that. Should not be a significant impact to the town, but it does limit activity that can go on within the Zone 2 area around a well. So it's important item to talk about.
On those capital items, maybe just to elaborate a little bit, some of the things that we'll be requesting is some funds to clean up the vegetation in Highland Lake.
Yeah.
And potentially Bush Pond as well. The fire department is in need of some new equipment that is desperately needed, so we'll be funding that. We're looking at potentially adding a new staff member to the fire department, but not until later in 2019. We're also funding money for an LSP to continue the work on the area known as Buckley Man, if you will, where we know there are some concerns, and we want to be sure that we're represented in that discussion. So we've funded an LSP that will work for the town to just say sort of check on the work being done by the private LSP. And those are the main items. I think Jack mentioned a police car and a few other small items, but we've had an unusual amount of requests for funding for a fall meeting. We don't normally have this much. Good news is that we still have funds left. I think we'll have approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 of free cash when all this is said and done. So that will allow us some cushion going into the Springtown meeting as well. So,
yeah, and I think Todd Lindmark has done a great job on the finances and prepping us for planning for these capital items. And
yeah, he has. He's done a great job. Yeah.
So again, that's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's November 27th. Will be town meeting. It'll be at the middle school at 7 p.m. and encourage everybody to come and participate. Some other things that are going around town, Lawrence Street. Unfortunately, not making quite the progress that we had hoped for, but we've run into two challenges. One is just getting the state to finish the contract with us on the MassWorks grant. That's just a matter of them getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. So
it's a formality, not a concern.
Yeah,
right.
And but the other one that's a little more of a concern is the contractor went in and did some work, and there's some debate, between the engineer and the contractor about who did what and all this stuff. But the bottom line is DEP is back involved, just monitoring the work that's being done down there when they cleared out the vegetation. It appears that either the original survey was not quite as accurate as it should have been, or the contractor was a little more aggressive pulling out vegetation and material underneath it. And they're debating right now about, what really happened down there. And the good news is DEP is involved. We've had a great relationship with DEP through this process. And the engineers are working to put together a mediation plan. And so we look to move forward with that. We're right now on the cusp of trying to figure out whether or not this will actually still be able to get done this fall, or if we'll push it off towards, if the contractor needs to push it off until probably the February time frame. The worst thing what we're trying to do is avoid the worst scenario is if they start the work and can't get it done before the winter months.
Right.
And then the roadway would be closed for an extended period of time. So we would rather have them be more conservative with their schedule and start in February, close it for 90 days and get done 90 days from then. So.
I mean, it hasn't gone as we'd hoped.
Yeah.
It seems like most projects these days don't go as we hoped. Yeah. But it will get done, and it's desperately needed. The bridge is an old bridge, 1914, I believe, is the date stamp on it. There's controversy as to whether it was built before that or not. And the causeway is somewhat hazardous and has shown a lot of erosion over the years. So this project is definitely in the best interest of the neighborhood and the town at large, because that's a heavily traveled road. Mm-hmm. And we're pleased that we were able to get the funding to get this done. It has nothing to do with the controversy over the project known as Abbeville. This is a project that we've been trying to get funding for a long time. And we were pleased this year that we were able to get it. But we'll get it done. Yeah. If not in the fall, it'll certainly be done in the spring.
Yeah, the good news is the bids, if people haven't heard already, the bids came back better than expected. So we were able to, we'd put out a base bid of just redoing the road and doing the bridge, and then added an addendum to it that said, if the bids come in favorable enough, we'd also put all the utilities underground. And the good news is the bids came in favorable. So,
it did. Came in under what we had funding for. So this will allow us not only to do the underground utilities, but it'll allow us to get a water main across that bridge. Yeah. Because right now we have no ability to get water up to any of those neighborhoods should there ever be the need. And this will allow us to do that. Yeah. So it's all good, but it's taking a little longer than we'd hoped.
So I'm sure we'll have Lawrence Street on the agenda for the next few Selectmen's meetings as we learn more information here. Yeah. So we'll continue to update people through Selectmen's meetings. And if necessary, at the next time we do this, assuming it's before December 1st.
And I noticed next on your list is Lake Street.
Lake Street,
which is one of my
favorite projects of all time.
Well, I'm not sure I'd call it favorite, but it's been a topic for a long time, and it's one that I have been angry at myself for many times. Lake Street, for those of you that don't know, is a rather unique road. It's off of Main Street. It's part of it is paved, part of it is dirt. It's been an issue for us for years. It's a very narrow road. It's a lovely road in many respects, but it is constantly deteriorating, if you will. We brought all the neighbors in about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer, to try and talk about how they might like to see that road repaired. That was a mistake because getting consensus is theoretically impossible. But we did move forward with it, and we planned to complete it, and then one of the neighbors apparently didn't want any work done, and quite frankly went to court and got an injunction to prevent us from completing the road. So we've been at a stalemate now for probably a couple of years.
Yeah.
Been very, very frustrating. It's hard to believe that we can be prevented from repairing a road that we legally own, and it doesn't serve the best interest of the other residents on that road, that live there. It appears now that we are very, very close. In fact, we thought perhaps even today, very close that we're at an agreement where we can complete the road. So hopefully it's one of those stay tunes that within the next week or so we'll have this done, hopefully by the next Selectmen's meeting on October 2nd. And Mr. McGee stands ready and able with a phone call to get the necessary work done on that road. We'd like to get it done before the winter sets in. So yeah. We're cautiously optimistic that we're seeing the end of this. So
very well said. It's we're getting there, and Bob will put down get the work done and put down a first coat. And
we will be paving. We will be paving the road,
stabilized.
So
and then put a finish coat down after. Usually he likes to put a first coat down and then put a finish coat down after one winter.
It's been frustrating because the road is terrible in its condition, and not being able to other than to do very minor fill-ins of potholes that cars would disappear in, we really haven't been able to do anything because of the injunction.
Yep.
And it's been frustrating and not fair to the folks that live there. So we're glad that we're close to an agreement, hopefully at an agreement where we can take this off the list. Yeah.
Hope so. A couple of things going on. The HL of Day is at the point where it needs a new roof. The school has applied for MSBA funds. Again, they'd get probably about the 53% reimbursement for them helping with the project. So they've made it through the first stage of that. We're hoping that they'll make it through the next phase of that approval process, and then likely the school will want to come to the town in the spring and ask for some funds to pay for the town's portion of that. Having said that, the good news is we also have some money coming back from the MSBA, finally, for the Freeman Kennedy project. $946,000 is coming back, hopefully within the next month. Some paperwork will be signed at the next Selectmen's meeting just to sign off on some of that, but that, knock on wood, is the very last step of that process.
Yep.
I mentioned my daughter earlier. She's off to University of New Hampshire. She was in the last class at the Freeman Centennial School, the last 6th grade class that left that school, and so at that point, the Freeman Kennedy was done. So that just tells you how long it's been since we've been able to get this funding back from the MSBA. But I guess it's.
But we're going to get it.
But we're going to get it.
We're going to get it, and hopefully this will help us in terms of repairing the HL of Day roof as well, with a little bit of luck.
Right.
Yeah. So. That's good news. Just a couple of other things that we're working on. We are working with the schools on strategic plans for potential growth and how we might deal with that. That is more than just a Norfolk's issue. That's also Plainville and Rentham's issue. These developments have not just hit Norfolk, they've hit the other two towns, and in fact, in some cases, harder than they've actually hit us, which of course presents a concern to King Philip. So that is an ongoing strategic issue that all of the towns are trying to work through to plan for this potential growth that we foresee coming in the next 10 years. So we're also started the budget process with King Philip. They have a new superintendent. We had a joint meeting with all of the different towns, all of the selectmen and finance directors and town administrators with the superintendent. Talked about the process that we employed last year, where we worked together collaboratively to try and come up with some numbers. We're going to do that process again. We're going to continue that process this year, and hopefully it will go as smoothly as it did last year, which is one of the best years of budgeting at King Philip I've experienced in my tenure. So I view that as good news, and the superintendent is saying all the right things, but I anticipate that the process will be again productive. We'll have productive times. So.
Yeah, Dr. Zinni, Paul Zinni, is the new superintendent, and seems to be doing a great job right out of the gate. So
yeah, he's also, I think, building on the collaborative efforts that have been done by the 3 superintendents of the elementary schools, and they have been collaborating for some time in terms of working together on curriculum and other issues. He, I think, is now bringing more of King Philip into that cycle, so that there is more of a connectivity between the elementary and the high school. And I think that's all good news. So he also brings an expertise in special ed, which is something that is one of the major cost items for King Philip. And, of course, the 3 towns all feed their special ed considerations into that system. And so I think he can provide some insight as to how we can best manage that as well. That he'll bring a fresh look at it, I guess is the best way to say it. So I have a lot of optimism about what's going on with King Philip, and of course Ingrid here in Norfolk. They don't get any better.
She's been great.
She's just tremendous, and our schools continue to flourish.
Yeah, she's done a great job, and again, I can't speak highly enough of her. And she's also not only her main role as superintendent, does awesome, but has been a great partner with me working with the facilities. And Matt Hafner, the director of facilities, who reports to both of us, he's done a it's the combination of us working together has been they've made it easy. And Matt has done a lot of great things, really kind of protecting our assets and
she's been really wonderful to work with. Yeah.
One other project that's going on in town that we thought was going to start, I want to just mention to people that it's been delayed and we don't know when it's going to start yet, is Seekonk Street. We talked about it at a couple of selectmen's meetings. It was they're going to put a gas line in on Seekonk Street and make gas available to more residents along Seekonk Street, but also it's a main that's important for their infrastructure. The work was supposed to start the day after all the Lawrence, the Lawrence and Andover, North Andover, that issue happened up there. So Columbia has obviously redirected their focus up to that area, and they haven't given us a time frame as to when they would come back here. I suspect it won't be until the spring.
Yeah.
But we're obviously understand and want them to put the attention up there that needs to be put up there.
It's certainly understandable that they've taken a step back.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Lawrence incident, our condolences and best wishes for a speedy recovery go to one of our outstanding firefighters, Deputy Chief Petruchik, who was in Lawrence helping fight those fires, fell through a roof of a burning building, or a floor, I should say, of a burning building, broke his arm, had surgery within
Monday,
the last day or two.
Yeah.
Everything went well. He will be out of service for a short period of time, but he's a durable young man, and I know, knowing Peter, he'll be at the station pretty much every day anyway. But we thank him for all of his service, and of course hope that he gets a speedy recovery. But that's what these guys do.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They run in when everybody else runs out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do. And police officers get their credit too, obviously, but the firefighters just, the mutual aid that they do. They're constantly going to Millis and Franklin, et cetera, and dealing with issues and from our point of view, obviously those folks are coming to us when there's an issue.
Not all of the surrounding towns around us have paramedic capability.
Right.
Millis being one that does not. Medfield doesn't either. Something about the M towns. I don't know what that is, but so our services are called on frequently by those towns, because we do have that paramedic capability, and that is a significant difference in the services and help that they can render people that are in distress. So.
I can't. I mean, you see the emails Cole sends us when there's a cardiac save in town, and there's been two just in the last few months. I should say this month.
And we continue to struggle with the opioid epidemic. We're not immune to it here in Norfolk, unfortunately. It doesn't seem like anyone is immune to this tragedy. And they have responded to a number of those unfortunate incidents in town as well. So It is what it is. But they do tremendous work. Maybe one thing we can wrap up is just an update on the police and fire project.
Sure.
Which has been an interest. I've been on another building project a few years back, and I've never been on one quite like this. And I guess police stations are just far more complicated than schools. And I think that's part of it. And what adds to the complication is that we're also constructing the regional dispatch center in the same facility. So it is a complicated project. And it has endured some delays, and it has endured some cost overruns that we're trying to work our way through. We anticipate now that the police and rec regional dispatch center should be operational sometime in January, is I think a fair statement. We're on the home stretch. It is actually a very attractive building now. It's coming along very well, but it has been a tremendous amount of oversight and work to get through this. Once we get through all of this and we know where we are and how things look, then we'll begin to take a good look at the fire station and see how we can make improvements there as well.
Yeah.
But it has been a very, very difficult project.
It has, and appreciate the building committee putting in all the time that they have to make sure that gets done, and certainly Matt Hafner and
he's
Bob
been
Bullock,
terrific
for doing everything that they've done. Matt lives this day in and day out, and Matt brings a lot of experience when he worked at Massport, getting things done, and he's still doing it. And whether it's putting the septic system in or making sure that there's conduits in the building for whatever needs to get done, and making sure that the fire stops are there, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's just that it's way beyond my area of expertise.
Yeah, and I have to say this in all honesty. Part of the issues that we've had is that our architect did not anticipate the complexity of this project, and that has cost us both time and funding, and not something we're very happy about. It's not something that we didn't anticipate, but when you hire an architect who does this for a living, building police and fire and public safety facilities, one expects them to be a little bit more thorough than I think has been the case here. And we've paid a price for that, and we'll work through that when the project's over. Yeah,
not to mention the project manager that we had to terminate.
We had to terminate the project manager as well. Yeah. So it's been a tough project, but the good news is it's on the home stretch, as I said, and
like you said,
and it will be a very nice facility, and it will be state of the art.
Yeah.
Which is terrific. And the regional dispatch center, I think we're the second in the state, maybe the third.
Might be the second that's actually running. There's other ones
there is
that are
another
in
one
construction.
Starting, Yep. I think it's Hingham, and down in that
the
area
Shrek.
that was the first. So we're the second, and it's going to create great capabilities for us, redundancy, 4 towns working together. Our response times will be greatly improved. We don't have concerns about one dispatcher on duty handling an emergency call and getting a second call that he can't answer, and a police officer has to pick it up. And it will make the town safer. And that's a priority for all of us.
Absolutely.
Make the town safer. So, and we don't always like to thank the state, but we thank the state for funding that project. So we've received many millions of dollars to help facilitate this. So
and I encourage, we'll have a education mailing going out soon, and the fire chief in particular always talks about it. Just encourage people to, if you want to reach the police and fire, and it's, you're not just calling to see what time they're open. Well, that's not a good example, but if you're not
they're open 24 hours a day last time I looked, but
if you're calling them with any business related, don't be afraid to call 911. You'll still get to the same place. And I say that because I want you to be connected quickly, but I also say that because we receive funding by the volume of our 911 calls. So if you're calling to say that you think you don't want to just bother them with a simple, I got a little smoke in my house, don't call the business line. Call 911.
Well, any concern, you should always call 911.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you never know how serious it is.
I guess my point is, lean towards be safe and call 911 if you're in doubt. It's fast. You don't have to look up the number. Just call 911. Nobody's going to yell at you.
Yeah, we hope.
Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of wraps us up.
So I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, I had to. We're going to miss you.
I appreciate that. And I'm certainly going to miss you and the town. And
going to miss you.
A lot of great people here. It's not an easy thing to say. And as I said, I don't want to talk about it because I'll get emotional. And
so you're going to leave that to me, huh?
I will.
Thank you all. Jack, I'll let your turn to say goodbye.
Thank you all. And thank you for joining us for Conversation Corner. And as always, appreciate my good friend Jim Lehan joining me here today. And I want to thank everybody for the time I've spent here in Norfolk. Raised my kids here, worked here. It's been a great run, and I'll still be here for a couple more months, but eventually I'll be moving on, and I will miss it greatly. So thank you. Take care.